Morning.
Minor prophets.
No, you forgot something. Back to the beginning.
In Habakkuk, chapter 2. This is our 64th lesson. In the minor prophets. And should be able to finish up Habakkuk next week. Pretty certain that we will, so we'll kind of hurry up and get through chapter 2 this morning, or finish up chapter 2 really, because last week we ended up with verse 1 of chapter 2. It really went with chapter 1. That's where the separation probably should have been, starting off a new paragraph in verse 2. But going back to verse 1, Habakkuk writes, I will take my stand at my watchpost and station myself on the tower and look out to see what he will say to me and what I will answer concerning my complaint. And if you remember from last week, Habakkuk had two complaints really. One complaint was, why is Judah, Jerusalem, why are we, the people of Judah and Jerusalem, surrounded by such evil? Why, Lord, are you allowing this to happen? And the second complaint after the Lord gives him an answer there is, well, how can you allow an evil nation to come in and punish a righteous nation? How can you allow the Chaldeans to come in and do this destruction on Judah, your people? So it's a good question. The answer to the first complaint is, I've got something planned. I'm going to allow the Chaldeans to come in and destroy the nation. How can you do that, Lord? That doesn't sound very merciful. That doesn't sound like your grace is shining upon us. So when Habakkuk offers that, remember, this is a vision. He's seeing this in a vision. He's asking the Lord these things in a vision. Once he does that, he says, now I'll take my stand at my watch post, because the prophets were the watchmen, and I'll look to see what he will say to me. I'm waiting for an answer. And then what I'm going to answer to his answer, basically, for my complaint. So that's where we're going to pick up this morning. I want you to notice, if you're used to outlines, it doesn't look like it's flowing completely here. Like you get chapter 2, yes, we're in chapter 2, and then A, but you notice like the 1 with the parentheses, some parts are missing. That's because I wanted to get these major points up here. So there are some points in my outline that are not there. It doesn't follow through exactly. So we'll work our way down through this. But the most important thing in this chapter is the Lord's answer. And the Lord's answer, well, there's two sides to it, but the most important one that Habakkuk needs to hear, and Judah and Jerusalem needs to hear, is the righteous shall live by faith. Yes, there's going to be destruction. The nation of Judah is going to be destroyed. Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. The temple is going to be destroyed. But the righteous shall live by faith. Now, it doesn't mean physically they're going to be saved. Physically only. But in some aspect. Spiritually, they're going to be saved, but some will be saved physically. And I hope you understand the point I'm making there. So in verses 2 and 3, the certainty of Judah's destruction. Look what the Lord, we'll start there. Verse 2, and the Lord answered me. The Lord answered Habakkuk in this vision, okay? He says, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. So, what's he saying? The Lord is saying, it's the answer to the question, how could a righteous God allow an evil nation to punish a righteous nation? Well, because it needs punished, number one, but number two, the righteous are going to be okay. The righteous will live by their faith, whether it's living here on earth or whether it's living spiritually in another realm. The righteous are going to be okay. But you got time to get righteous. Get right with the Lord. Have you ever heard that expression? Get right with the Lord. A friend of ours, when he did like camp sessions, one of the things was, get right, Lord, and let's go home. Get right, get right, church, and let's go home. Yeah. That's so. Yeah, get right, and so he starts off. Write the vision. Write it down. Write it down. Notice, make it plain on tablets, because then they didn't use papyrus. This is still the time when they would take clay and smooth it out real nice, and then write on the clay. You've probably seen what they call cuneiform tablets, looking in an encyclopedia, whatever, history book, and then they would write on those, and it's these tablets. And the Lord is saying, write it out, write out the vision, write what you're seeing, make it plain on tablets. Not a tablet, tablets. It's going to be distributed. We want the people to know and understand this, so he may run who reads it. Now here's the thing, it's not so that he may run away from what's going to happen, but so he can run the race of faithfulness, so he can have the assurance that in what's going to happen, he's going to be all right if he's righteous, if he's faithful to the Lord. We talk about the Apostle Paul. I have run my race, I've finished my course, all that. I've kept the faith. Well, that's kind of the idea here. And, it's not running away from what's going to happen. Sometimes we've got to go through the midst of the battle. And going through the midst of the battle in faith strengthens us. And sometimes the greatest challenge that we have is remaining faithful in the battle. Just like what Habakkuk's got to do here. What most of these prophets have to do. What Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, how would you like to be them? Get in the fiery furnace. Get in the lion's den. Right? They had to walk through it. But you know what? If you're righteous, it's going to be all right. Don't fret about it. Verse 3. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It's not right now. What do we say he was writing about 625 BC? It's not right now. It's not going to start for about 19 years, 606, 605, 20 years, okay? You got time to get righteous, but it's going to happen. It hastens to the end. What does it mean, it hastens to the end? What happens with a snowball rolling down a hill?
It's
Bigger, 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 bigger. And that's what's going to happen. All these events in human history are just accumulating like a snowball. What's going to happen? Well, you're going to have a time of reform under Josiah. And everybody's going to breathe a sigh of relief. Well, see, everything's going to be better. Then all of a sudden, Josiah dies in battle because he goes up to try to defeat Pharaoh Necho. Well, that's not good. The Egyptians go on over to help the Assyrians. They get beat, right? The Assyrians get beat. The Chaldeans are rising. Great, because we were helping out the Chaldeans, right? And we're paying them tribute. We're good now. Wrong, because they're coming after you next. It's just, where do you go? Where do you turn? So, it hastens to the end. It will not lie. No deception here. The Lord's going to make it happen. Time and events may calm the mind briefly, but nothing will stop the Lord's judgment. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. It's the end of verse 3. What does that remind us of? How about 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9? What's that?
the Lord.
Go ahead.
The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some count slackness, but is long-suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance.
And Habakkuk might say, and some others would say, oh, where's the Lord's mercy in this? Where's the Lord's grace? He's giving them 20 years to straighten out. Not the nation. Remember? Not the nation. But the individuals. Because he's done with the nation. How do we know that? 2 Kings. Let me get back there. Chapter 23, verses 26 and 27. Listen to this. This is right before Josiah's death in battle. Still the Lord did not turn from the burning of his great wrath, by which his anger was kindled against Judah, because of all the provocations with which Manasseh had provoked him. And the Lord said, I will remove Judah also out of my sight, as I have removed Israel, and I will cast off this city that I have chosen, Jerusalem, and the house, that's the temple, right, of which I said, my name shall be there. This is about that time. I wonder if that was part of Habakkuk's spoken, oral prophecies. Or maybe it was Jeremiah who's prophesying at that time. But you can see, it's going to happen. The Lord's not turning back for the nation, for the city, or for the temple. So back to verse 4, Habakkuk chapter 2. And the Lord says this, behold, his soul is puffed up, it is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by faith. Well, whose soul is puffed up? Whose soul is not upright within him? Who's he talking about? Well, he must be talking about the Chaldeans. right? Yeah. Nebuchadnezzar, he's not a good guy. He's an evil guy. He's proud. He has a greedy kingdom. But when that greedy kingdom has sunk in ruin, you know who's going to be around? The righteous people of the Lord. What did Jesus say in the Sermon on the Mount? Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Kingdoms rise and fall. But the Lord's people, the righteous, they've always been here, haven't they? Always. They may be hard to find sometimes. Where do we find them today? Ask scholars. What nation today has the most Christians? And I'm saying this in the worldly, secular sense. What nation today has the most Christians?
Russia. Most Christians? Russia.
I think so.
United States. It's not the United
It's
Israel?
not the United States.
Israel?
Last time I heard it was India. India.
No, I read that just a couple of weeks ago about Russia.
Russia's probably got a lot with the Orthodox since it's coming back.
And of course, it was in amongst war stuff and all, so it might have been a misquote or something.
But
I
you-
was surprised. It's a good thing there's a lot of them there.
Yeah, well, Putin, that's one of the things about Putin. Putin is actually pushing Orthodox Christianity because he's not putting up with this woke stuff of the West. He's using that against us. But India, 1 billion people, and it's less land space than the United States. And Muslim and Hindus, the church, Christianity as the world sees, but even the church, it's growing, declining here. All right, so
We're not hungry enough.
we're satisfied with prosperity, with worldly stuff, and we have allowed. Can we say that we are not militant? We are we're not militant in the sense that the Bible, the New Testament, teaches Christians, disciples to be militant. We are more in the mood of let's just, well, here's the thing going on in the whole world today. The problem is we want a dialogue with people. Let's just talk to people. Let's just, Blinken, Secretary of State, what's he doing today? He's over in China, what's he doing? We need to dialogue with these people. We need to have a conversation with them. For heaven's sakes, they've been at war with us for at least the past 20 years. We don't need to talk with them. We need to say no. And we need to be kicking some of the stuff out of here. And I think I said either last week or week before last about, what are we going to do when the Chinese, put a gun to our head and, deny Christ? They're sending them over the border. The Department of Defense, or Department of Homeland Security, has now come out and said, yes, they're sending them over the border. We want to get through chapter 2. Okay. But you can see where this is where this is run. The proud shall not continue, but the just, the righteous shall live by faith. And that is repeated in the New Testament at least 3 times. Of course, Romans chapter 1, 16, 17, the righteous shall live by faith. Habakkuk chapter 6, verse 20. Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 6 through 20. Get it right. This will go pretty quick, okay? Because there's not a whole lot of material in here. It's just 5 woes upon the Chaldeans. All right? Verses 6 through 8. Woe to him who heaps up what is not his own. Well, what is it that he's heaping up that are not his own? It's nations. Nations. And that's what all those empires did. Go back and look at all the empires, okay? Roman Empire, what did they do? They defeated nations, all right? End with them. The rise of nations, okay? Where would we start? Colonizations, okay? British Empire, Spanish Empire, French Empire under Napoleon. Conquer nations, conquer nations, conquer nations. What did Hitler try to do? Tried to establish a Third Reich, right? So it's the same old secular world history story over and over. So verses 6 through 8, shall not all these, and who are they? Well, I think it's the righteous, take up their taunt against him with scoffing and riddles for him and say, woe to him who heaps up for what is not his own, for how long? And loads himself with pledges. Will not your debtors suddenly arise, and those awake who will make you tremble? Then you will be spoil for them. Because you have plundered many nations, there's what he's heaping up that's not his own. All the remnant of the people shall plunder you. For the blood of man and violence to the earth, to cities, and all who dwell in them. So what the Lord is saying is, yeah, the Chaldeans are going to come on. Hey, what happened to the Assyrians? What happened to the Egyptians? What happens to all these empires? What's going to happen to the Babylonians? So the Greeks are going to come, the Medo-Persians are going to come and take them. What's going to happen to the Medo-Persians? Greeks are going to take them. What's going to happen to the Greeks? The Romans are going to take them. What's going to happen to the Romans? They'll be different. They'll just die off. At least that's what Daniel prophesied. But that's the woe given to the Chaldeans there. Verses 9 through 11. Woe to him who gets evil gain for his house. Woe to him who gets evil gain for his house, to set his nest on high, to be safe from the reach of harm. At least they think they are, right? You have devised shame for your house by cutting off many peoples. You have forfeited your life. For the stone will cry out from the wall, and the beam from the woodwork respond. Now, I'm not sure what that means poetically, that last part, but destruction comes for those who gain things by evil. What is the sword? He who lives by the sword, what? Shall die by the sword. I guess that's the best way to kind of explain that. Okay, 12 through 14. Woe to him who builds a town with blood and founds a city on iniquity. All right, you look at some of the great cities of the world. Well, what was Jerusalem built on? That was worship to the Lord, wasn't it? What was, say, some of the great Egyptians towns built on? Some of those were built on religion, but they also prospered. Like Alexandria was based on education. Athens built on education. Corinth was built on trade. See what I'm saying? There are some cities that are built. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, steel. All right, Chicago, hog butcher of the world. You got things like that. But what if your city is just based on blood and iniquity?
Can't
That's what it is.
stand.
Yeah, the only thing you're there for is to conquer, destroy something else. You're not there to build. There's only so much you can take. There's only so much. What do many scholars say the reason was that Hitler failed at World War II? What was his main problem? Supply lines.
That's what I was gonna say, and I didn't know where you were going.
Supply lines.
That's how we won every war we won.
Maintaining the
Through
supply.
supply lines.
Yeah. When Hitler was going east, look how far he went. Now, he should have known better than try to take Moscow in the winter. Napoleon, that should have been a lesson learned. But when he turned around, he was fighting a two-front war then when he tried to take England. At the same time, he destroyed his supplies. He couldn't fight a two-front war like that. And it disrupted his supply lines, especially going to the east. And he was also in Africa. So the United States, getting into the war, had supply lines to North Africa, Patton, and to England to build up with Eisenhower for D-Day. Can only go so far. All right. Verses 15 through 18. Woe to him who makes his neighbors drink. This one is important. This one is for our day too. Woe to him who makes his neighbor drink. You pour out your wrath and make them drunk in order to gaze at their nakedness. Think a couple of times examples in the Bible where you have a situation like that. I say just a situation. How about Noah after the flood? Okay. How about Lot after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah? Right. How about Herod? Herod, and I want to say Archelaus, who had John the Immerser's head chopped off. See? Think of situations like that and what they're, especially with Herod, the purpose of life was. All right? Verse 16, you will have your fill of shame instead of glory. Drink yourself and show your uncircumcision. Now, talking about the Chaldeans, but listen, even the circumcised can show their uncircumcision when they do unrighteous things. They show that they're not the Lord's people. Okay? And that's exactly what Manasseh had done. And that's exactly what Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, and Zedekiah were going to do. All right? The cup in the Lord's right hand will come around to you, and utter shame will come upon your glory. All right? And that cup in the Lord's right hand, what were the last of the plagues in the book of Revelation? Cups of wrath poured out. Right? Verse 17, the violence done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, as will the destruction of the beasts that terrified them. For the blood of man and violence to the earth, to cities and all who dwell in them. All right. And I've got 18 included in that, and I don't know why. I should have just stopped at 17. Okay? But the idea is there's a forced cultural and that's why I wanted 18 in there. What profit is an idol when its maker has shaped it? A metal image, a teacher of lies, for its maker trusts in its own creation when he makes speechless idols. So what was, when we look at Assyria and we look at Babylon, and then later when we look at the Medo-Persians, okay, what were they doing? And especially in their dealings with Israel and with Judah, what were they doing in a sense that they were making them drink and making them drunk? It's forced cultural and a religious indoctrination. In other words, you become like us, or we will destroy you. See what I'm saying? And you go back and you look at like Ahab and Jezebel in the northern kingdom. What did they do? They brought in Baal worship to be like the nations around them. Oh, yeah. I want to say Jeremiah. Isn't that awful? Jeroboam, when he split the kingdom, he put the calf worship in Bethel and Dan. What? Be like them. And we're going to force you to be like them. We're going to force you to wear clothes like us. We're going to force you to teach your children to be like us. We're going to force you to use our money. We're going to force you to think like us, act like us. You're going to have homes like us. You see what I'm saying? Culture, change the whole culture. Isn't that what's been happening in the United States since about 1900? And it just about got it completed. Idolatry. What profit is an idol when its maker has shaped it? How do I want to put it? Do you not, what does it say on our money, our dollar bills? In God we trust. that God has given a system. God, through His Word, the Bible, has given a system of life that says, here's a way to have peace and prosperity. We haven't always followed it, but at least it was there, and it was the basis of our understanding. And sometimes, yes, we had to fight a war. And if you go back and you look at the Civil War, both sides were saying we're fighting for a righteous cause. Isn't that the case? All right? How many wars today are righteous wars? World War II may have been to a degree, but a lot of people don't understand when we went into World War II, the two sides that were fighting were the National Socialists and the Party Socialists, and we went in on the side of the Party Socialists, the Communists. And then we gave them everything afterwards, in Europe and in Asia. Where did they get those philosophies? Where did they get those things? Where did they get that understanding of the world? It didn't come from God. It came from man. It's something man created. See what I'm saying? It's idolatry. It's idolatry. Off my soapbox for a little while longer. Was that the 5? Was that all 5? Woe to the idolaters. 19 and 20, that'll be 5. Woe to the idolaters. Woe to him who says to a wooden thing, awake! To a silent stone, arise! Can this teach? Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, and there is no breath at all in it, and here is the Lord's answer. But the Lord is in His holy temple. Where's that at? In Jerusalem? The Vatican and Rome? Salt Lake City? No. It's in heaven. The Lord is in His holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before Him. He has declared Judah and Jerusalem to be destroyed, the same as Israel. Habakkuk, stop complaining. Be righteous, and you'll be okay. Does that sound reasonable? I'll take care of the Chaldeans at the proper time. But right now, judgment begins at the house of God. I'm going to take care of the people that are my people, supposed to be my chosen people. And I will take care of my chosen people, is what the Lord says. You got 20 years. You want to be ready? What's the lesson for us today? We're not even guaranteed the rest of this day, are we? Are we ready? Well, that's chapter 2. There's not a whole lot to chapter 2 when you think about it. But that's the Lord's answer. I will take care of evil. It starts in the Lord's house, and it'll end with the world. He's going to take care of it. All right.
I think what you said about in the midst of the storm, come out stronger, there's a lot of, that's a good synopsis of the lesson.
Yeah.
It's in chapter 2.
And, you know, we applied it. Was it in Micah? When the Lord brought the embryonic nation of Israel out of Egyptian bondage. He brings them through the Red Sea, right? And the Apostle Paul says they were baptized unto Moses at that point, right? And they're still babes. They don't even have the law yet. And they go over to Sinai, they get the law, and the Lord tells them, now you're going to the promised land. I'm taking you right there. And they walk over, it's not very far. It's just a few days. And they walk over to Kadesh Barnea. You ready? Got to go into the promised land. Send over 12 spies and see. Let them tell you how good it is. And 10 of those 12 spies come back and say, we can't do it. We can't take it. They're giants over there, and they got fortified cities. And yeah, the land's good. It flows with milk and honey, but we're not warriors. We can't do it. After what they had seen the Lord do to the Egyptians, they couldn't trust in the Lord to take care of the Canaanites. So they had to wander for 40 years in the wilderness, but you know what? The righteous people had to wander with them. And when it comes down to it, who gets to go into the promised land out of that whole bunch? Caleb and Joshua. The two righteous people. But a whole generation comes out of that goes into the promised land. You gotta walk through it. You gotta walk through the desert sometime to get to where the promised land is. You gotta walk through some wars and some battles, miseries, sickness and death. That's that. I'm sorry, that was marriage vows, wasn't it? But you understand the premise. Okay. I better stop there before I get in trouble.
Why is your face red?
Class dismissed.